Today's story comes from the Reddit user Spookberry. My reason for never ever thrift shopping again. You're probably wondering why in the world I'd never want to thrift shop again. Maybe because thrift shopping is great, and I'm not saying that it isn't. It's good to be aware of who the clothes used to belong to. Let me explain. I'm a college student and I work for my school. I'm also a part of a fraternity. While I had no intention of joining a frat or becoming a frat bro, the world had other plans. Always a key part of being in a fraternity is doing community service. I always enjoy helping out people, so I usually had no problem getting my service hours on time. However, my schedule has gotten hectic and I barely had time to do community services. This is how I found myself there, at the share shop. I'd never been into the share shop. From what I knew, it was a place that had free utensils, shoes, clothes, and even microwaves. The share shop was also in the basement of a dormitory. I was met at the entrance by a boy named Finney. Finney was really nice and showed me around the area. To be honest, it was kinda creepy, but it wasn't too bad. So after 6:30, just shut off the lights and close the door entrance, okay? He said. I nodded my head and was about to turn away when he stopped me and leaned in close. I almost forgot to mention. Don't go into the share shop storage room or other storage spaces. I don't want you to get lost. And with that, he walked off. I walked into the share shop and sat down waiting for the first visitor. By the last hour, I'd had about 20 plus people come in and out, getting the things they wanted. Since the shop was empty, I looked around for a bit. I ran my hand over the hanging shirts and the worn out dresses. One shirt caught my interest. It was a beautiful light pink cashmere sweater with light red splotches all over the front. I reached out and touched it, and it felt so soft. I loved it. I may be a man, but hey, who said that men can't wear pink sweaters? As I inspected the sweater, I noticed that there was a name on the inside of the tag. Mia, it read. I shrugged and set it next to my bag and went to the bathroom. And then I smelled it. It smelled like a decaying animal and it made me gag a bit. I went back into the share shop and I noticed that the smell was coming from elsewhere. Since I'd been in the bathroom when I smelled it, I figured that it must be the storage room, which was right next to the bathroom. I remember what Finn said and thought about how much worse the smell would get if someone didn't clean it up. I decided to go in and do what was necessary. Most likely it was just a dead animal that got inside and died. How I wish that was the case. The storage room was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. I gagged as the smell worsened. It was so strong. So bloody strong, it almost made my eyes water. I used my phone's flashlight to find the light switch and I flipped it on. The room was filled with trash bags containing whatever college students didn't want. One bag in particular looked newer than the rest. It didn't look like it was covered in dust, and I noticed that there was something oozing from it. I stood puzzled, wondering why someone would put a liquid in a bag. I guess that it wasn't unusual, but it was still unusual, to me at least. I grabbed hold of the bag and noticed immediately how darn heavy it was. Not only that, but how the smell seemed to be coming from the bag. I gagged as I began dragging it towards the door. Once I dragged it to the door, I stopped and rested for a minute. Curious to what had died, I cautiously opened the bag and almost threw up as the smell hit my nose. I used my flashlight to see what has died, and I wished now that I hadn't. Upon seeing why the bag was so heavy, I froze. My hands clenched and I stepped back holding my stomach as I hurled on the floor. What I saw, I can't even begin to describe to you. All I can say is that it was a person, or it used to be. I called Finney first and then I called the police. I explained what I'd seen and they walked in just as Finney arrived. I explained to him what I found and his face went pale. The police returned, their faces grim, and took me and Finney aside asking for our statements. Who was it? I asked, my hands shaking a little. We don't know. And I'm sorry to ask, but how long has these bags been here in the storage room? The policeman inquired. Sadly, I don't know, but I can tell you they've been here for a long time, Finn responded. Why do you ask? Well, the policeman started. We decided to look for more of the bags and we found 6 more bags containing various bloody clothes and several shoes. He shook his head. We'll inform the school and have them shut down the shop until we complete the investigation. You both should go home and stay in town. We'll contact you if we have any more questions. I walked back into the shop, past the yellow tape and into the shop itself. I grabbed my bag and the soft pink sweater before leaving the shop and going home. I watched from my window as I saw the police cart out the body and the trash bags. I stayed inside and away from that building for a couple of weeks. If I did go out, I refused to walk on the side where that building was. I don't want to think of what I'd seen. On the day of Halloween, I put on the pink and red splotched cashmere sweater. I'd washed it thoroughly before I'd even thought of wearing it. However, the red splotches faded, yet not truly disappeared. They became lighter, but they still look red. I shrugged on my winter coat and walked out the door. I had barely closed the door when a police car slowed down in front of the house. I watched the policeman walk towards me. Are you Michael? He said. I nodded. He pulled out a picture of a girl with mousy black hair. She was smiling. Did you know her? He asked, and I shook my head. No, why do you ask? Who is she? I asked. She's the girl whose body was found in the trash bag. I watched as he pulled out another picture and I froze. Her name was Amelia, he went on, but her friends called her Mia for short. My throat tightened and I could barely breathe. My eyes were focused on the picture. In it, she was wearing a pretty pink cashmere sweater. A sweater I recognized all too well. My hands shook as I opened my jacket, showing the police officer what I'd just learned. I was wearing Mia's sweater, the last sweater she was wearing before she died. And I had a sickening feeling that the dark red splotches on the sweater were not splotches. It was her blood. The end.